All right. Good morning, everybody. So today's, at least on your tests, very important sort of a pre-summary, which we normally don't do, but it's a good way to understand today's Gemara, is that so we had two Mishnahs. The first Mishnah of the parak brought a case of Eish Zachit Shalom Belamo, which was reference to the first Mishnah of Parak Aleph. So we want to know that case. So we said in general, let's just go over that case real quick. So you had Eish Zachit Shalom Belamo, is that there was two brothers married to two women. One of the brothers died. The oldest died. And then, and this is Shimon, will say is another brother. So then there's a question of, the first Mishnah talked about a case of a child was born, okay, Levi, and then he performed Yibum. So the Mishnah says, and then if he dies, so now since she is asr to him as an erva because she is Eishes Achishel Balamo, so therefore she is asr. She doesn't need Yibum or Chalitza, and so too her co-wife also. That was the Mishnah A. Mishnah B was same exact case. He dies. He does Yibum.
And then he's born.
Then he's born. So since he finds her Behatera, as we're soon going to see in the Gemara, which we started to discuss, therefore it was like her Isser of Ruvain never applied. Isser, the oldest, never applied. And therefore, if this guy, the second brother, Shimon dies, then there is no then. So in this case, according to the Rabbanan, once again, according to Rabbi Shimon, says no, since when he was born, she was already did Yibum to Shimon, it was like Ruvain, or it was like the first oldest brother never existed, and therefore he could Yibum Chalitza. So that was Rabbi Shimon. So now there's a case of, and only at the end does Rabbi Shimon, and he argues in the case. So the question is, does Rabbi Shimon argue in the first case also? Rabbi Oshia says he does, because he holds Zika Knusa Damya. That since by the fact that when he was born before the Yibum was done, since there was Zika, there was this attachment between her and him that is forcing him to do Zika, that Zika bond, therefore it's like she was married to him already, and therefore the Isser from the oldest brother didn't exist. So the question is, according to Rabbi Oshia, Rabbi Shimon held that the Zika is so strong, even though he was born before the Yibum was done, it was like she was already married to brother number two, and therefore it's not considered to be Eish Achishel Balamo. That was Rabbi Oshia. He says he even argues in the first case.
We don't know according to Shimon, what the case is then.
What do you mean? What would be Eish Achishel Balamo? So he says either in a single case of where there was a brother, he was married,
only one brother.
Right, one brother, right. So that was one of the scenarios. So now we brought a case to try and go ahead and argue on Rabbi Oshia. We're actually going to have another shita, Rav Papa, who's going to come argue and says, no, Rabbi Shimon never argues in the first case. All right, so that's sort of the preview of today's daf. So we're on Yud Testament Aleph. The Tema, 4 lines from the top. Now, so we just brought a case. We want to say that Zika was Knusa Damya. Now he says, what do you mean? That even in the case of Zika and Maimer that were done, in other words, if Shimon, the second brother, did, right, he didn't fully marry her, he just did Maimer, and then there was another brother born. So even then, Rabbi Shimon is Mesupah, whether or not he was married to her or not. So the Tema, my coffee guy is here. Can you, I couldn't find my to-go cup somewhere else. All right. If you say that maybe, now we brought a kasha, even going back to this case, all right, for further explain. We didn't even start yet. We see all this, this back talk. So we brought yesterday at Yud Chasam Beis that case of the Tanan. There were 3 brothers, right, that were married to 3 sisters, right? 3 brothers married to 3 sisters. The oldest died. The second one does Maimer. Okay, and then he dies.
Wait, they're married to three sisters. How can you mind?
Not three
Three
sisters,
Nachrios.
not three sisters. Three Nachrios.
Okay.
Did I say three sisters?
Yes.
I meant three women. Sorry about that. Like sisters is like, like we're brothers. It's
Sister-in-laws.
sisters.
Sister-in-laws.
Yeah. Oh, sister-in-laws, right? For sure, right? So so that was the case over there. And so Rabbi Shimon over there says to do yibum to one of them and do chalitza to the other.
Right.
All right. So we say you can't. So we're trying to. So we see in this case he's mesupik, right? So maybe miduraisa we can say is knusa damya, and therefore it's like he was married through the mimer. That really you can do even to one and be part of the other. And only midrabanan we say it's also just do even one other goes off scafri. Why because maybe people will see the scenario and say, "Oh, I remember there was another case where two brothers died. One, and each had wives." And one guy did yibum only to one of them, and the other one did do nothing. So maybe two brothers falling to two sister-in-laws falling to a brother-in-law. Only one of them needs to be taken care of, and the other one is done. And then not realize that the mimer really, made her really the wife of the second guy. And therefore, below klub, and that people will then think that yibum could only do one house, and the other would be nothing. But But Rabbi Shimon's reason is because of mimer, right? Is he's mesupik as whether or not mimer works at all. The Tanya and Bryce, I'm Rabbi Shimon l'chachamim. Mimer shasheni mimer, right? So if the mimer of the second one is in fact a mimer, so eish shichu boil, then he's being boil and eish ish, right? And notice that would be yibum. The mimer shasheni ain't a mimer, and then if the mimer is nothing, right, is nothing, eish is rishon boil. Right, then he's doing yibum with the first one, right? So we see over here that in this case that even without the zika doesn't it's not kinusia. It's not like he's married to her because the mimer was nothing and she was married to the first guy, right? So there was no zika there. Somer lei abai. Maybe the differences between this case and the case of our Mishnah is over here when the oldest dies, right? There's Zika Zika to the two people, right? In the case of Zika with two people, then we say the Zika is on it because we don't know which one she's going to go ahead and marry. But if there was only one brother in the scenario, then maybe in that case, you can see the Zika is like a marriage because there's no other option. So obviously she's connected to this person because she has to do yibum with him, and therefore it's like she's married to him. So maybe that's the difference in the cases, right? So Dilma Kiyama Rabbi Shimon Zika Knusadami, maybe that which Rabbi Shimon said that Zika is a Knusadami is B'Yavam Echad L'Shnei Yavamim Lo. But with two Yavamim, then in that case it's nothing. That's why over there he's mesupik whether a mimer works at all. And does Rabbi Shimon differentiate between Zika to one brother or to Zika to two brothers if both, let's say Shimon and Levi are alive? But Tani, we learn in a Bryce, it says Klal Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says a rule, right? Kol she'elida kodemas l'nesuin. Regarding a case of Eisha Fishalav Alam, right? So regarding that case, right? If the birth came before the Nisuin. In other words, there was two brothers, each of them had a wife, and then one of them died, the oldest died, and now she has to go ahead and do yibum to the brother or chalitza. If he was born kaidim Nisuin before he takes her in marriage for yibum, then in this case he would die, so he doesn't do chalitza at all or yibum because why? Because he found her, he didn't find her married yet, right? And if it was a case of where he did yibum before he was born and then he was born afterwards, right? So my lab isn't that talking about a case, the first one, of when there's only one brother, and it says why? Because the Isser of Eish was upon her. And that's Rabbi Shimon saying it. So the answer is low. No, we're talking about there was two Yavam. Right? We're the first wide line. Right? But if that's the case, right? If it's only, thank you. If it was one brother, so then what? You did your chalitza or yibum, right? In that case, ihachi. Right, in that case, if there's one brother, it's like she's married the because like she's married. At the time, by the fact that you differentiated in two cases between whether the child was born, the brother was born before or after the yibum. Why is it in that case? This is only talking about two yivamim. Then there is no zika kikunusia. She's not really completely married to either one of them, and therefore she like has the ishus of the deceased brother. But if it was one yavam, right? So so the Gemara says no. Kula b'shnei yavam kamari. He's talking about a case where it's two yavam. So Ella, if that's the case, my klala. Why does it say klala? It's a rule. It's not a rule because it's only a rule when it applies to yavam. It's not a rule when it applies to one yavam because if there's one brother, then it would be zika kirusa damya. The Od, and furthermore, just to make this a little more complicated, they say Rav Oshia. Rav Oshia has a question, but this is not right. Rav Oshia, this is a different right. Rav Oshia. The name is Rav Oshia. Gimel achim shnayim mehen nesu and shtei achayos. Oh isha bita. Oh isha bas bita. Oh isha bas bina. So basically, you have three brothers. Okay, now two of which are three brothers. Right, we have three brothers. Two of them married. Let's say the two oldest marry either sisters or a woman and her daughter. Basically, they're married relatives, right? They're married relatives, which in a normal situation, right, one would not be able to. It would be an erva to the husband, right? You know, her sister, his wife's granddaughter, his wife's mother, right? So on and so forth. Now, in that case. So it marries them, right? So hare elu chosos v'omisyamos. And no. So they both die, right? And now they fall to Yibum, right? So they both die and they fall to Yibum, but they're sisters, let's say. Let's go scenario sisters, right? So they do chosos v'lo misyamos. They can only do chalitza now. Why? Because each one, now they're both falling to Yibum from different households. But each one, this girl, she is the sister of a woman who he has Zika with.
Yeah.
And this one is the sister of a woman who he has Zika with. So therefore, right, so therefore we say, do chalitza and not Yibum. Rabbi Shimon Pater. Rabbi Shimon says, Pater, right? You don't have to do anything. It's like an erva. Each one is the erva, it's no good. If that's the case, right? So let him do yibum to the first one, right? Let him do yibum to the first one, and then the other one be pater. 1 second.
Amen.
So the oldest one dies, right? So the oldest one dies, leaving over her. Now, her sister is married to his other brother. At this point in time, he should be able to do yibum, right? So even if he died, right? So since he has the zika there, even if he dies soon before the yibum, let him be able to do the yibum, okay? Because she came first, and she's not the sister of his Glasov at the time of when he died because he's still alive. The second guy's still alive.
Zika was created before the second brother died.
Right, and therefore she's not Achaz Glasov. She's
by Rabbi Shimon. It should be okay.
Right.
Yeah, whatever.
So Amar Rav Avram. So my paiter. What does it mean? He says paiter. Now he paiter b'shniya. He means paiter for the second one. Yes, einechanami. That's what Rabbi Shimon meant. I got tiny Rabbi Shimon paiter b'shteihen. It says b'shteihen. So Amar Rava shniya b'zugzu b'shniya b'zugzu. So he says very complicated, not complicated case, but Rava says his place is all over the place. So he says Rava's shot is a scenario where basically, and those of you who have the art school, there's a picture on 1984. So basically, they each have two wives, right? We're running out of women here. They each have two wives. And in addition, so their two wives, one of their first wife, both their first wives are sisters.
Right.
The second of the first of their wives is a mother and daughter. Is a mother and daughter.
4 wives.
Right. So there's 4 wives total, each with 2.
I thought they each had 4 wives.
But right. And then there's also Isha Ubita and whatever, and Bas Gana and Bas Bita.
8 of these women are falling a lady.
8 of the women,
That's right. You know.
but they're all paired. Each one is paired up with another erva to her in that scenario. So that's a Rava interprets it, and therefore, what he's saying is when he's when he says that the second was putter, right? So he says the second one, once he does one, then her counterpart, her erva, is usher to the other one. So the Rava says, wait, Rava, before we even try and assume that you're correct, first of all, Katay Rava ba'arba zuge. He's making a mistake. Chad the ok tani. If you look back, it says, oh, Isha Bita, oh, or, not and, or, right? Furthermore, Rabbi Shimon Pater, it shouldn't say Rabbi Shimon was Pater, right? Shtayam, right? Pater, right? It should be Be'arbasa. Very time, and furthermore, Rabbi Shimon Pater b'Shtayam in a chalitza in a yibum shenamar ba'isha elachaysa laticha litzor, right? Rabbi Shimon brings the pasuk. He says these Pater from both them from chalitza or yibum, because the pasuk says a woman, right? Elachaysa laticha litzor, a woman, right, and her sister should not take. It means when they are tsaras to each other, right? They're both falling to yibum. Then you can't even take one of them. No, what's pshat there? Why is he putting from both of them? We were talking about a case of where he fell to both of them. It was if one fell after the other. In other words, the oldest dies, and then a week later the second one dies. How can that be? You're right. Then, because before the second one dies, he's able to go ahead and marry the first one because she's not related to anybody. The second one, so and do even the one of them. The nafel b'vas achas, when they died simultaneously, and since they died simultaneously, there was never one that was not a sister or a relative of Zukukasa. Rabbi Shimon said like Rabbi Yosef don't have Shatzamte, and Rabbi Yosef holds that it's possible for two things to be at the exact same time. In other words, it's possible for them to to die at the exact same time, and therefore both are usher simultaneously. That was Rabbi Oshia. Rabbi Oshia's opinion was in our Mishnah that Rabbi Shimon that Rabbi Shimon argued in both cases. Comes Rav Papa Amar, really really only in the second Mishnah of where the oldest, right? There were two brothers married to two women. Excuse me. The oldest died, let's say, and the other one does yibum. Then the brother is born. Then the guy dies. That's the case. Rabbi Shimon says mutter either one of them. We don't. The oldest brother is like he never existed. Right. That case, that was where he dies, according to Rav Papa. But however, if he's born first before the Yibum takes place, then Rabbi Shimon agrees. But it's true. And both of them, the reason why we have both Mishnah is to teach you the Kayach of Rabbi Shimon, actually of the Rabbanan, to teach you that even arguing the second case, when the child is born and the Yibum was already done with brother number 2, she still has the Yisr of we still care that she was born to, or she was married to a man to who he never existed with. Even if the guy died and even before he was born, still forbidden. And therefore, it's written in the format of, right, the bigger Chiddush is second, and then not only, and also this is. And Tanya Kavasi the Rav Papa, the Tifta the Yosha. Now we have a Bryce and support of Rav Papa and a Tifta Roshia, and so that was, so far we've dealt with complicated Amud number 1. Now we go into complicated Amud number 2. We're going to have a long brisa, which with featuring Rabbi Shimon and these different cases. Let's see. There are 2 brothers. Balaam Echad lived at the same time, but Mesa died and was married without a child. The other one was, so I'm going to explain this case a little later on. The other one was going to go ahead and do Maimer. But it sounds like before he was able to go ahead and do Maimer, so in other words, she's sort of nothing yet. The third brother was born.
Yeah, that's the first mission.
Right? I don't know. We'll soon see if it's the exact first mission because this Lashon is very funny. Right? In theory, right? Very good. I don't know. The first one leaves because nothing was done yet, and she was married to the oldest, and the oldest is now dead, and he never lived at the same time as the new brother Levi. And the second one, now there was nothing, there was no connection yet. And also, if Maimer was done, if Maimer was done, and then after he was born, so basically there was this kedushin, right? That was which is not midoraisa.
It's the first.
Right, so he goes ahead and does Maimer with the first one, right? And then afterwards, then he's born after the Maimer. Or he was born and then Maimer was done, right? Which seems like the previous case, so you have to re-understand the previous case. Umeis, and then the middle brother dies. The first wife who was originally married to the oldest, and then Maimer the second one, she is pater completely from Eisha Shalom. The Shnia she has to do chalitza stuff because perhaps that there was the Maimer is nothing, and therefore she was never related to brother or never married to brother two, and therefore his wife would require chalitza. We don't want her even because maybe Maimer was something, and it will create an issur. And turn the page. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Biyasa o chilitzasa shel achas mayem paiteres tzarasa. If he does, right, the bia or chalitza of one of them, right, then it paters the tzar, right? It paters the tzar. Now the other woman does not need anything. So if so we have to understand this case. So Rabbi Shimon says, right? If he does chalitza to the one who did Maimer, but if he does chalitza to her, then he doesn't pater this one because perhaps she was never nothing with him, and therefore he has to do that.
Well, you should have priority with the wife rather than with the Maimer. You would think that more harsh
both
of
of
the wife rather than the Maimer. So
well,
the Maimer should be pure and wife should have the chalitza.
Right, but she has something going on, either from him or from him. We don't know where her zika to him is now, right? Is it from him? And maybe even if it was from him, it's still okay, right? Or it wouldn't be okay because she's waiting. Even when he was born, he found her minister, right? Or it comes to him, so we don't know. But the Gemara is actually going to reintroduce these cases and explain all these cases. We're on Yud Tes Amud Beis.
As long as there's no bia, you can fix it differently, meaning if it's just Zika or just Maimer.
Well, if there's bia, then she's for sure the wife of that person.
Okay, that's what
But then it's easier for us to diagnose the situation and say, okay, she's married to him. She's a complete wife.
That's one.
Right, when the case is Maimer, right. So if we have now, let's say this case, Kansa Umeis, if he goes ahead and the middle brother goes ahead and marries her, Umeis, and then he dies, so in this case, like you're saying, he takes a reib and then he's born, or that the child was born afterwards, he's born, excuse me, and then afterwards, the middle brother's Yibum, Umeis, and he dies, both are because Mary, right, and she is Eisha K'shel B'lamo, right, which is the Rabbanan Shita. If he does Yibum, and then the brother is born, and he dies. Both of them are pater from Chalitz and Yibum, Divrei Meir, because he would hold Eisha K'shel B'lamo, and she in her tzara. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Hawil B'lamo to the heter, and Rabbi Shimon says since when he was born, he already found a beheter, i.e., because she had Yibum with the next brother. And she was never ostragen for a moment because she was already fully married. They're ready for the Yibum to brother number two. And you can go ahead and do Yibum either one or Chalitz either one, and the other one goes free.
What was the case of
That was the case where they did Yibum. That was the case where there was Yibum with the middle brother. He dies, and then there's Yibum with the middle brother. Now, how about the Seifa? Now, this last case, Laman Kataniva. Why was it brought? Now, remember, this is always going to be brought as a proof for a papa that Rabbi Shimon only argues, right, in the second Mishnah, but in the first Mishnah he would agree. Right? If it's for the purpose of Rabbi Meir, right? So let's see. Right. So according to Rav Meir, it doesn't make a difference as to whether he does Yibum first and then he was born, right? Which is like the Shita of the Rabbanan, right?
That was the
Basically,
first
or he was born
when the
and then does Yibum. Both cases, she's always considered to be Isha Kashil Alon. You can't erase the original marriage to the oldest brother. Right. And and therefore there's no reason to go ahead and rather why to differentiate Rabbi Shimon. Rather not is to differentiate the case according to Rabbi Shimon. So if he does Yibum and then afterwards the Levi is born, Pali argues, but Noilad, right? He's born, right? In that case, he wouldn't argue. He would hold Esach Shila Balava. So Shlamina, indeed, learn from here that Rabbi Shimon differentiates as to whether he was right. Like Rav Papa, that in this case, that she would, since he was born and she was waiting for Yibum from the brother who he never lived in the world with, therefore remains with her and Esach Shila Balava Isser Erva on her. Fine. Omar Mar. Now, this brisa was a bit funny. We had some cases that seemed to either duplicate itself, right, or inconsistent with the shittas of Rabbi Shimon. So let's see what's going on here. Omar Mar. Omar Hashem lasses of Maimer Bevinto, you speak lasses Maimer Bevinto, Achno. So, in the case, right, there was two brothers, one died, the oldest died. And the second one, before he had the opportunity to do mimer, right? It says there, right? And he didn't have a chance yet. And then a brother was born, Umes, right? So the first one goes out, and the Shnia, the second was Chlitzar Yibam.
The second brother dies,
right
before.
Well, let's see. My Ahmad, what does it mean? Ahmad, it says it's very strange lashon, right? Ahmad lasses by mine. What does Ahmad mean? My law, he speak. What's mean? He did opportunity. E Avid, E law, Avid, right? Just say he did mimer, he didn't do mimer. What's this? Ahmad, right? Ella Ahmad midaita. Rather, what's talking about is he went Ahmad midaita. He was going to do it, and she agreed. Oh, let's go ahead and do mimer. So we're going to do the kesef. But he speak midaita Ella bal karcha, and then she changed her mind, and he did mimer bal karcha. Before he was born, he did Maimer Bal Karcha. In other words, he forced
or without it.
with witnesses. Let's say Udalon Karebi. Udalon Karebi.
Mimer has to be done.
Okay, so it's done with that.
It's still Mama defined with Ed. It's not otherwise it's not Mama.
Right. Udalon Karebi. It's not like Rabbi the time within a brisa. Ha'oisa Maimer b'yavim to Shlomi Daita. One who does Maimer for the Yavama Shlomi Daita against her will. Rabbi Amar Kain. Rabbi says it acquires her, right? And Chachamim say no, he does not acquire her. My time of the Rabbi, what's the reason called the Rabbi Gamar may be a Diavama? We learn from Diavama, Ma be a Diavama Bal Karcha. If one goes at it, normally she has a choice. But let's say she said I don't want to do it, and he's boil her anyways. He violates her, right? He's ma'anes her, right? Ma be a Diavama Bal Karcha. It does work. And she's so af kedushin. So af kedushin Diavama Bal Karcha. So too mimer, which is kedushin for Yavama, also works Bal Karcha, just like Yibam. Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan will say, "Come here, kedushin the alma." They work with kedushin the alma. Huh?
Who decided on it?
That what?
The brothers decided on that.
Who that he does it?
Yeah, the mama. She forced her.
He didn't want to do it, and he did it anyways.
So my point is, they didn't force it.
No. He forced on her. He forced on her, and that was it.
Wow.
Put it in her hand. This is it. Hold it. You're done. I don't want to do it. Too bad. You're done. And Rabbanan give me kedushin the alma. They run for the normal kedushin. Just like the normal kedushin is only works midaita if she agrees. So too the kedushin the mimer only works midaita. And what's the machlokes here? So one holds that which in other words, Rabbi holds that Mili Divama learns from Mili Divama. Myself, Mili Kedushin. Now, so that was that case. So in other words, that first case over there was Amar Lasses B'Mayvelo. He speaks Lasses Ad Shenar L'Ach. That was referring to a case of where basically he forced the mimer upon her, and that was the machlokes. Now, the next case. Asaba mimer. Now, if he goes ahead and does mimer, and then a brother. So if he does mimer, and then the brother was born. Or he was born first, and then he found her. Basically, she was waiting for Yibum, and then the middle brother does mimer, right? The mace, and then the guy dies, right? The mace. This one goes out because because she was never married to the same. Because when he was born, she still had the remainder of the marriage from the oldest brother. And that was the first. So that one is part of She's going to do chalitza not yibum. She can't do yibum because maybe the mimer was something. They're co-wives. So and there's co-wives to an erva. Therefore, you can't do anything. Therefore, you do chalitza. Shimon Omer biyasa chalitza shel achas man pateres saras. The bia or the chalitza of one of them paters the other one. Now, which one? Rabbi Shimon Ayakut. Which one is he going? If we're talking, which case? If we're talking about a case of where the brother was born and then mimer was done, right? Yabim like Pali Rabbi Shimon. He doesn't argue in that case. That case, she's an erva. She's Eisha Chagilabalamu, right? So how can So Ella rather so that Ella Sabamimer. So now that she's an erva. You can't do Yibum Chalitza with one of them, right? Because she's an erva, right? Ella Sabamimer. Rather talking about the case of mimer was done first, the Acharkan Alalach, and then the brother was born. So in that case, so we say since the mimer was done, now he can go ahead and his biasa Chalitza Shachazmiam paters etc. According to Rabbi Shimon. And Chalas Labalas Mimer, if he does Chalitza to the one who did mimer, right? To that first, the one who was married to the oldest, Loi Nifta Tzar. The other one is not Pat. So my time, what's the reason? Mishum Dahavilate Tzar Vadai, because she says Vadai, Balas Mimer Suffolk, and then also she's a Suffolk, whether she's him or not, and she is Vadai needs from him, right? From that house. And therefore, and therefore, so you're right. So therefore, you should go to the Vada and not the Suffolk. And therefore, if you go to the Suffolk, you have not taken care of the issues with the Vada. Fine. Now, that was the price. That was explaining the price.
That third brother who was born later, he should do chalitza with
the mimer.
No, with the second brother's wife.
Pink dress, I think.
No,
Right, with her.
Yeah,
He just cleans at her, but right, she's the right. So he does with her now, because if she's considered to be his wife, then that's her tzara. Then she's gone, and if she's still considered to be his wife, then she's pater anyways. So therefore, that would work. Right now. Yosef, Rav Menashe Bar Zvi coming to Rav Huna, Yosef Komer, my time to Rav Shimon. What's the reason going to Rav Shimon? Mar says, my time to Rav Shimon, right? What's the reason according to Rav Shimon, right? So he says, you shouldn't see the time, right? So my time to Rav Shimon, what are you talking about? We said, he holds that the reason going to Rav Shimon is the case of when he holds that there is if this guy, brother number 2, already does Yibum before he's born. So by the time he's born, she's basically considered to be a wife of brother number 2. And brother number 1 is like he never existed. And therefore, if he goes out and dies, there is no Isra in her. So very clear is the sheet of Rabbi Shimon. Ella, rather, my time of the Rabbanan. What's the reason going to the Rabbanan? So the pasuk he says no.
What was his status?
According to Rabbanan, so here's the case according to Rabbanan.
Yeah.
He died, oldest dies,
Right.
Other brother does Yibum.
Oh, he did. Okay.
This guy is born. He dies. According to Rabbanan, she is still considered to be Eishdach Shela Balama. She is now considered to be the widow of not just brother number 2, but also brother number 1. She still has that Isser on her. It doesn't disappear. Why not? My time with the Rabbanan. Right? So it says he takes her for a wife, right? She's still forever considered to be the Yavama of the first brother. She's still called his widow. Ella, that's now everyone in the Mishnah. If he marries her, he's considered to be his wife for every man. Over there. In other words, he can divorce her, he can take her back, right? So he's his full wife. So right? V'tibay chalitza. So maybe you say, oh no, if she's still Yavama, maybe if he, the wedding, the wedding doesn't, the marriage doesn't work out, he just get rid of her through chalitza, right? If he didn't take it with Yibam, he would have done the chalitza. So maybe the chalitza is the way out of this marriage. If she's still Yavama, right? And he can never take her back, right? So Shani Hasan, he says he gave her Isha. Since he takes it like Isha, so in this case over here, say that according to the Rabbanan, that once he takes her as a wife, it's his wife, and never the wife of the original brother who died. Hachanami, right? This is Viva. So my rice. Now the Gemara says, okay, but bottom line, why one and not the other? My rice. So Mistabra, Shadi Hatera Hatera, Shadi Isura Asura, right? Take the heter pasuk and the heter issue, and the isur pasuk and the isur issue. What do you mean? Let's just look at Rashi real quick. Last wide line of Rashi. Shadi Hatera lemidras v'lacha deloit tebechalitza. All right. Take the drush of v'lacha and take her not to require chalitza. A heter from the heter. Heicha the kula milsa heter can go and be avim ishis. Right. Put that in the case of where a complete heter, such as he's able to go ahead and perform the yibum on his brother's wife. So his brother's wife, that's the case. We'll say v'lacha, you will take her as a wife. And the shade isura, and the next Rashi, the shade isura lemidras v'yima, right? The isur of when it says v'yima, she still remains the yavama adayin yivumi oleha. A isura in the case of isur. Right? Where does the tzad isser? Right? Like in other words, if you're going to say that she is still yavama from the first husband, we'll say it's going in the case of isser, which is eishes achishol yabalamo, and therefore we'll say the isser still remains. She's still considered to be the almana of this brother forever and ever. Fine. And according to Rabbi Shimon, who holds, right, that once he was born, right, and she was already did yibum with brother number 2, and therefore there's no isra in ela. El miata achaysa miimo shenasa achiv mi aviv v'achar kach noelo ach umeis tisyavim hoel ba'al matzah beheter. So what? So this scenario, right? Can't say it because I'm on video. But let's say like this. Let's say, actually, so let's say this is actually the case is on the bottom. You basically have, right? You have those of you who have the picture on the bottom. Actually, there's a thing another picture on the next page. Oh no, maybe not. All right. So you have in this case on the bottom, you have 2 people. Yaakov. What's the case over here? Right. So you have 2 paternal brothers. Don't say that. Sorry. You have a father, a man marries a woman. All right, why are you going there?
That's a good thing. It started right.
Man marries a woman. Okay. Now he has a son from another marriage. She has a daughter from another marriage. Okay. Now, then the two of them, right, have a brother, have a child together. A yankel. Right. In this case, right. So in this case, it looks like it's the Shimon in this case. Now, he is not related to her.
Right.
He can marry her.
Right.
Right.
If he marries her, okay, and then he dies. Okay, so
He can do
he
it.
is his brother, but wait, that's his maternal sister.
Half.
That's
He's half.
his maternal from his
Right,
mother's side, not the
right.
father's
So
side.
his father's side.
He has to do even because they're brothers
Right, he
from the
can't.
father.
So you can't.
Over here, right? So over here, but wait, when this child was born, right? In this case, was born, right? So right? So they got married. Then a brother was born. And then the brother's case died. So Tisyabed, right? Since, right, when he came, right, he found her beheter. One second. So
It's a sister from the mother.
Right.
Half sister. Right. And the
one second. Why is the matzah beheter? Right. So it says right, half sister.
Half, because it's the
Why is he
same.
matzah beheter?
But that's the next kasha of the
I mean,
Gemara.
it's
Right?
a
Right.
mother, excuse me, it's a mother.
All right, so he's all right. So the Gemara says.
That's right, that's right.
So he says since he found her heter, right? Right. So over here, so in theory, so he was born here. So in this case, according to if you hold that previous.
Yes,
Yisurim.
yes, the relation.
So the Gemara says Israel Chaysa also. Well, how do you mean he found her beheter, right? So where's the Israel Chaysa? So Achinami Israel Chaysa Shalom Be'olam Eichel also, right? So in this case, we'll say, wait, well, why did the Israel Achiv Shalom Be'olam the Eichel also? In other words, if they were married, right, and then he dies, right, and then he was born, right.
Oh,
So maybe in that case, right?
No
So maybe in that case, you say it's mutter.
Just like we said, we don't-
Say it's mutter then in that case,
Right.
right? Say it's mutter
Yeah.
because that marriage was already gone.
Right.
She didn't fall the ibum, and
He's
therefore it'd
free.
be mutter. So hi, you certain unless I had hi, you certain unless I had No, in the case of Eisha Chashalababa, there is a heter, right? There is a heter for Eisha Zachiv, hi through ibum, right? But there's never a heter for the achaisa, right? This is the right, and that therefore in that case the achaisa that will never be okay. So therefore that's the case. You can't you ask on Rabbi Shimon. Fine. Now you Mishnah.
So
Wow.
he cannot take
No.
his
It depends
half
if it was-
sister.
It depends if it was born.
Even though he was never
Right.
alive during the time that
Right.
It's still his
No, no.
sister. It's still his half sister.
That's the Gemara
No,
question.
that was the question. Because when he was born, l'chari she-
Depends if it was born or not. If
Right.
he was born, yes. If it was not
when he
born-
was born, he should have been mutter because
Right.
Eish Takashil Abalamo. So since that
That's
case
not
was
before.
disappeared,
The other
and
case.
there's no problem of because he's not right there.
It was not existing when the whole relationship.
Mom is
was-
behind, guys.
Right. We're not behind. It's today's down.
Hey.
All right, fine. You gotta go. Mishnah says, so cloud Rabbi Yavama. So says there's a cloud Rabbi Yavama. Kol she Isser Erva. Anything which is Isser Erva, right? Like a relation. Like you can't do Chalitza even as we since discussed. Isser Mitzvah. If there's a Isser Mitzvah, which I'm going to explain, right? Which I believe is going to be Shnuyos, right? The Isser Kedusha, right? Shnuyos is basically a secondary, not a new type of, but a type of a rice or Isser Kedusha, right? It says Isser Kedusha, such as, let's say, Alman Kohen Gadol, Chaletzes v'lo misevemes. Does Chalitza not even? Achaisa shehi yevimta. If her sister also fell to Yibum with her at the same time, in other words, let's say two sisters were married to two brothers, and both those brothers died, they both fell. After Yivimta, Chaletzes o misevemes. You can do Chalitza or Yibum. We'll have to explain that case. And Isser mitzvahs, Isser mitzvah, it was Isser mitzvah, Shnuyos, Midivei Sovim, that's the Shnuyos, Midivei Sovim, Isser Kedusha, is Amal Kohen Gadol, or a Grusha Chlutz Kohen Hedyot, that a Kohen Gadol cannot marry a widow, he could marry a divorced woman, he could marry a woman that Chalitza. Excuse me, sorry about that. Opposite. Almana is forbidden to a Kohen Gadol. This is what happens when you speak before you think, right? So Almana is forbidden to a Kohen Gadol, and a Grusha and a Chalutza, right? They are banned to a Kohen Hedyot. Regular Kohen Hedyot cannot marry a divorced woman or a woman that Chalitza, and in addition, a Kohen Gadol has an additional Isser that he also can't marry an Alman. Mamzeres in the Sin of Yisrael, there is a law for someone to take a woman who is a Mamzeres, or in the Sina, right? They were during the time of the Yeshua's conquering Israel, right? There was those who basically these sort of were supposed to be killed, but they finagled their way out of it. They became water drawers and so on and so forth. So it's Isser to marry them. Ubasriel and the Sina Mamzer, those are also considered to be Isser Kedusha. So Zok the Gemara. So cloud lasui mai. So usually we have the word cloud comes like to was some Amar Rav Bar Papa lasui tzaras islanders to include a tzara of an island. Could Rabbi Asi, like Rabbi Asi knows that if there is a woman who falls and she's an island, this is basically a woman who will never be able to have children. She's already got to the age of 20 and she's not producing any signs of physical maturity. Then so that case we also Rabasi and like Rabasi. Because I mean some say Kol Shisa is he who desira sarasa halaisira is erva, right? So you say some say that anything that's an isra erva, that's the case of the asted tzara halaisira is erva, but there is no isra erva. Then sarasa halaisira, right? Then her tzara is not excluded. To include the tzara of an islandess, that she is still subject to Yibam Rechlitza, and not like Rabasi, because Rabasi held that the islandess is just like an airport. Now, she givimta. The next is she givimta. What was that case going on? So So who was this case of Achaisa? Right. So we had the case of, let's say there were two sisters falling at the same time of Yibam. So there were three brothers, right? The three brothers, and they're married to two sisters. But wait, it gets better. So they both die, and they're falling to Yibam to the third brother. However, we're talking about over here, right? Wait, if we're talking about over here, right? If she's a sister, in other words, by
women are sisters.
Yes.
the two and her sisters. Now, one of them has an issue, right? One of them has an issue being married to this guy. Okay, so let's say that they're sisters, and one of them is a Isser Mitzvah, right? So let's say one of them is a Shnuya, right? One of them is related to him. So if one of them is related to him, right? So we'll say like that. But since Midoraisa,
Sister, how can one?
How
can be one related?
why?
and the other one
Because
not?
he
If it-
I'll tell you why. Because he married her daughter. He's married to her daughter. Okay, he's married. He's married.
okay.
So that's his mother.
Two marriages, okay.
But now in this case, if the Isser is not mother-in-law, but let's say the Isser is a Shniyus, right?
So that
Isn't there a bottom?
That is
Well, there's sisters, and
Sister
also this
plus
one is
the
related to this
daughter.
one somehow, right? So if gave them right, Rami Kame, wait. If this case over here is Midoraisa, she falls, right? So therefore, how he can't go ahead and do
No,
with this
the sister,
one
right.
because there is Zika here, because only Midrabanan she's also,
right.
right? If it's Isser there. So rather we say, Ela Chaysa Isser Erba. Rather it must be that her sister is Isser Erba, let's say the mother-in-law, not the Shnuyos, right? So therefore, in this case over here, where the Mishnah says, it means this one obviously does nothing because her daughter-in-law is already married to the third brother. This one, even though she's sisters with an erva, but since she's falling from a different house, she can go ahead and do Yibam or Chlitza with the sister of his mother or of his mother-in-law, whatever erva it was. Fine. Isser mitzvah shniyas, and the isser mitzvah is shniyas. So my car, isser mitzvah was isser mitzvah, but my mitzvah is shon divrei chachamim. Mitzvah to listen to the words of the chachamim. Isser kedusha is Alman Kohen Gadol, Gusha Chutza the Kohen Hedyot, Sibaikar the Isser Kedusha, as well as Kedusha, the Chsim, Kedoshim you, right? You should be Kadosh, the Kohen should be Kadosh Hashem, therefore Isser Kedusha. And Tanya, we don't have rights of Rabbi Yehuda, Mach, that he switches around. Isser Mitzvah is Alman Kohen Gadol, Gusha Chutza the Kohen Hedyot. The Isser Mitzvah is Alman to Kohen Gadol, Gusha Chutza the Kohen Hedyot. Sibaikar the Isser Mitzvah, why is that Isser Mitzvah? The Chsim, Eila Mitzvahs, it says that the Kohen Eila Mitzvahs. And Isser Kedusha Shnuyas, Isser Kedusha Shnuyas, the Divrei Seifrim. Those are the Dirabanan Arayis. The Ma'ikar the Isser Kedusha was Isser Kedusha. Amrabaye Kol Makan Dirchamim Nikra Kadosh. Anybody who fulfills the words of Chachamim is called Kadosh. Amar le Rav v'Chol Shein Makan Dirchamim Kadosh Hudalei Mikra. Rasha Namilo Mikra is not called the Rasha if he doesn't listen to the Chachamim. Elam Rava Kadosh Atzacham Mutter L'Cham. Rather, sanctify yourself that which was mutter. Right. In other words, if you go, even though something midaraisa is mutter, but you don't do it, that creates kedusha if the Rabban, if Chazal tell you to do that. Fine. Amar the Kohen Gadol. Now, so if the brother is a Kohen Gadol, right? So the brother is a Kohen Gadol. We don't, right? The brother is a Kohen Gadol. One dies, and this guy's a Kohen Gadol. Now she's no much. She's a widow because her husband died, right? So we'll talk about that case. Kapasik, huh?
Kohen Gadol is actually
Kohen Gadol,
So kapasi v'tani loishna min asun loishna me'erisin.
Right.
So it seems like there's no difference over here, right? Kedushin or erisin. Now, if it's erisin, she's still a basula, right? She's never been with a man,
he
right?
died when she
Right, but if she was fully married, then she's also a beula. So bishlam min asun asa asi v'lo yisas say. I understand she was fully married, so therefore he's supposed to go ahead and take a basula, right? And he can't marry an amana. So there's an asay and a los asay not to do evil, right? Take a basula is the asay. Don't take an amana is the los asay. So the asay and the los asay override the mitzvah of evil. All right, the asay dachel los asay. The asay and asay is not dachel los asay. An asay elamina erisin. But if it's only an erisin, she's a basula. Right? The only violation is you shouldn't take a widow, Let's say Gradu. Yavo Asavi
No, but-
say. Let the
Everything-
Asavi be
everything
say.
she's not considered to be widow yet because there were no kiddush.
No.
She's not considered.
She
widow.
is. She is an almana because she already had kiddush.
So, but no, she had only erosin.
Yeah. Kiddush and erusin is the same
I
thing.
mean, no,
Yeah.
so
She didn't do nesuin, but she still called it almana. That's an almana.
really,
She's an almana. Even though she's a basula, no bia, still an almana,
Wow.
right? Loisa de Gradu. The other Asavi de Chaloisa say. So Rav Gida, Rav Kra, the pasuk says, but also Yevimta Hashera. So the pasuk says, right? The pasuk brought the Devarim Chafei says, "V'im lo yichavitz ha'ish lekachas as Yevimta, but also Yevimto Hashera." Right? El Zaken. He takes the cause of Yevam. She'en tamalei ma Yevimto. It doesn't have to say the word Yevimto again because already included in the pasuk. Ma tamalei ma Yevimto. Why does it say Yevimto again? Because it's telling you Yesh Chayivama Achas. Why? Because there's a new category, right? There's a category of women that can fall to chalitza and not even midiraisa. In other words, it's not one; it's all together. Basically, one's that chavi lavin, a chavi lavin. In other words, if this woman is really fit, right, she's supposed to fall to Ibum, but there's a lav to take her. Do not take lamana by Kohen Gadol, or if you're a Kohen, do not take a grusha, right? If in this case, you're still obligated to do a chalitza. You're just not obligated to do Yibum. Why do you say it's chavi krisis? Maybe the person is chav kares, right? So I'm right. It says no, if he doesn't want to take a woman, but if he wants, he can do Yibum. So therefore, since chav kares, he can't really take a woman. He's chav kares. So so we learn from there. Anybody who's subject to Yibum. Chalitza, subject to chalitza, because he no Yibum, he no chalitza, but if she's not subject to Yibum, can't take chalitza. Ihachi chavi lavin nami. Well, okay, if that's the case, chavi lavin also, right? Say it goes hand in hand. So Rabbi Yevimto, no, the Gemara says the pasuk says Yevimto a second time. Umar rice, and why do you include one, not the other? So the Gemara answers, right? Mistavra chavi lavin tops of kedushin, chavi kris tops of kedushin. So it says no, it's more logical to say if the marriage is not a chavi kares, then we'll say that could be the case. So where the Torah says do chalitza, not yibum. But if it's a case where it's a chayiv kares, then we'll say there's no yibum, there's no chalitza. Let's just do one other case, then we got to stop a little early. So tomorrow, Mr. Shem will catch up, or Tuesday. So Meisiv Rav, is there mitzvah, is there kedusha, right? In a case, is there mitzvah kedusha? It's like never ending, right? Okay, Baruch Hashem. Bala al chalatzla, lifter tzarasa. So in a case of Isser Mitzvah, Isser Kedusha, right? That was, let's say, Amal Kohen Gadol, or with his Shnuyos. So Balel Chalitza, if he does Bia with her, or he does Chalitza, Niftar Tzarasa. Bisa, that's Chavi Lavin. If we're talking about Chavi Lavin, Midaraisa, the Chalitza Ramya, right? So he says, Midaraisa, she's subject to Chalitza. And Liavin La Ramya, but she's not subject to Yibum. So why does it work? Why does he part to the tzara? Right? There should be nothing there, right? It's one thing if I do chalitza, the other one's good. But if I do yibum, the Torah doesn't recognize the yibum.
Right.
The Torah says you still need to do chalitza. So no, he asked. He says, "Let's tell you, Katani. Bala Isser Mitzvah. That which it says he's Bala is going in Isser Mitzvah. And the Isser Mitzvah, if he's Bala, in the case of Isser Mitzvah, so Midaraisa, she's not fit, right? She's not fit for Yibum or Chalitza, right? That's the case of the Shnuyos. So therefore, that's the case for part of the Sarah. However, Chalatzla, right? But if he does Chalitza, that's only going in the case of Isser Kedusha. 2 more minutes. All right, 2 more. 1 minute. So basically, Rabba, so you have a person who basically, or Vazokin, person who cannot have children, right, from an injury or something that was caused by man, or he was born right with not the proper reproduction organs, right? So they do chalitza or yibum. What's going on there? So the case Mesu, if they were the ones who were married to a woman, right? Tzedakah, right? Person with crushed testicles or severed organ,
He doesn't
right?
have children, right?
Right, he doesn't have children.
children.
Right, he doesn't have children. He died.
Right.
They have wives. The Asu Mimer, the Nisem, the brothers who wanted to go ahead, they do Mimer with their wives and Asu get, and give them a get. Chol to the Chalitza, Masha Asu, whatever they do, they do. V'ibolu Kanu, and if they do Yibum with the women who were married to, let's say, this guy who was unable to do it, it works. Now, if the brothers, right, were married to somebody, and a woman, and they die, and then their remaining brother is the guy with the injury, right? Can be and they get up, they also mimer, but and they also get, and then they give them the mimer, they give them a get, and and if they do bia, right? This guy who's a karshivcha, it doesn't make sense, but he does bia. Kanu, he does acquire her as wife. However, the usher the kaima, he can't remain with her. Because the pasuk says lo yav tzedakah, because it says this is Israel tzedakah coming to Bnei Israel, so he should go ahead lo yav tzedakah. Right? If you held that really midaraisa person with the lav, and those lav is don't take a kershivcha, or the psudaka should not come to the cloud. And now this psudaka, which he's usher to, he does yibum. So these chavi lav midaraisa, the chalitza rami, they require chalitza, but not yibum. In balo ma'akanu. Why should the bia work? Elamarava, Almana min Erison Nami Asiv Lysa. Rather, let's scratch everything that we just said, right? Rather, we're going to say Almana min Erison. If a woman was an Almana from Erison, in other words, she's not a, she's just in case, she's still a Basula, right? Asay v'loisa asehu, right? From you have an asay v'loisa asehu. The chsiv kadoshim you le'aleya. Right? Because the pasuk says you should be kadosh, right? You should be kadosh, and therefore it says you should be kadosh, right? So therefore, that's so in that case we see that even in that case, right, the violation is the almana, and the asay is kadoshim you. So of course, mamzeres nesina ma'iklamei. What is mamzeres nesina? Mamzeres nesina is only allowed. You should say the asay of yibum should override the loisa say of nesina and mamzeres. So mamzeres nesina ma'iklamei. So God says no. Ksiv v'isgashtem. You should all be kadosh. All of Bnei Yisrael should be kadosh. You should be kadosh and don't marry a mamzeres, right? If that's the case, every asay loisa say is considered to be a loisa say and an asay of being sanctified, not to delay it. Mercedes Gashtem. Salam Rabba, Gzeira, Almana Me'erisid, Atu Almana Me'asun. Right? Rather, we'll say there's the Gzeira of the Almana Me'erisid. In other words, the reason really you can't, the Kohen Gadol should be able to go ahead and take an Almana Me'erisid. But we don't do it, right? Because it's only a license. We don't do it because he might go ahead and take an Almana Me'asun, which would violate the Nasi license, and therefore we don't want that. And we'll stop here tomorrow, Mr. Shem, and continue. Everybody.